After more than 35 years treating patients over 50, I've realized something quite surprising. The human body tries to protect us far more than we give it credit for, but sometimes we don't treat it as kindly as it deserves. I once asked one of my patients, Linda, 68 years old, have you ever thought that what you eat every day might be the whisper of your future? She laughed and said, Doctor, at my age, I'm just happy if my food tastes good and I can sleep through the night. I held her hand and told her, that's true, but if we choose the right foods, we don't just live longer, we live better. Have you ever felt that way? Your body feels just a little weaker, your immunity a little lower, and suddenly you start worrying about illness? Cancer, the word alone sounds terrifying, but it doesn't mean we're powerless. Modern science has made one thing very clear. Food isn't a cure for cancer, but it is the body's first line of defense. If we choose well, the meals we eat every day can become natural weapons, quietly protecting us from abnormal cells long before they turn into something serious. Today, I want to share 12 foods that have been thoroughly researched. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just simple foods that contain real, proven compounds that may help lower cancer risk. Not rumors, not internet tricks, but what science has recorded and what I've personally witnessed in hundreds of my patients. And the best part is, you can start today, right in your own kitchen, with the everyday meals you already eat. Have you noticed that the most powerful things in life often come from the most ordinary places? Take broccoli, for example. It doesn't look impressive at all, yet it's one of the quiet heroes scientists have studied for years. I remember one afternoon in the hospital nearly 15 years ago. One of my patients, Samuel, 72 years old, had just finished treatment for colorectal cancer. He looked at me and asked, Doctor, besides medicine and follow-up visits, is there anything else I can do? I pointed to his hospital meal tray where a small serving of steamed broccoli Saturday. I said, Of course, Samuel. Your body still has strong allies. It just needs you to give them a chance. Broccoli contains a compound called sulforaphane. Complicated name, simple idea. A tiny warrior that reduces inflammation, repairs damaged cells, and even slows down the growth of abnormal ones. One major study I often share with patients found that sulforaphane can reduce breast cancer cell growth by up to 75% in lab settings. And people who regularly eat cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, spinach, Brussels sprouts tend to have significantly lower risks of colon and rectal cancer. But what I love most about broccoli isn't the numbers, it's its simplicity. A green vegetable you can find in any grocery store. Steam it, saute it, toss it into a salad. Yet it carries such powerful protection. Samuel later told me, Doctor, I don't eat broccoli because I love it. I eat it because I want to live long enough to watch my grandkids grow up. That stopped me for a moment. Because sometimes the smallest choices at the dinner table are the ones that keep us close to the people we love. A simple tip. Lightly steam broccoli instead of overcooking it to preserve sulforaphane. Eat it 2-3 times a week. Say, a humble green vegetable, yet sometimes exactly what your body needs most. See carrots, the gentle orange that protects your future. Some foods look incredibly simple, yet hide an entire treasure inside. Carrots are one of them. I have an older patient named Mary, 66. She's the kind of woman who loves gardening. Her sleeves are always dusted with soil, and she often brings me little carrots she grows behind her house. One day, she handed me one and said, Doctor, taste this. I grew it with a lot of patience. I took a bite, and she laughed. See? Everything good for the body requires patience, even health. And Mary was right. Carrots aren't a miracle cure, but they are part of the steady patience your body needs every day. Science backs this up. A major analysis found that people who regularly eat carrots have a 26% lower risk of stomach cancer and a significantly lower risk of prostate cancer. And one older study I still remember from the 1,980 seconds showed that smokers who didn't eat carrots had 3 times the risk of lung cancer compared to those who ate them regularly. Sound familiar? The small things we overlook are often the ones that make the biggest difference. I often tell my patients, you don't need a whole bowl of carrots every day. Just be consistent, little by little. Your body understands your patience. Beta-carotene in carrots isn't just good for your eyes. It helps calm inflammation, nourishes your cells, and slows the growth of abnormal cells that, if ignored, can become real problems later on. When Mary finished her appointment that day, she turned back and said, "People think good health has to come from something complicated, but sometimes it comes from what we grow with our own hands." A simple tip: eating carrots with a bit of healthy fat, like olive oil, helps your body absorb beta-carotene better. 2 to 4 servings a week is enough to make a difference. A small carrot, yet it can hold so much power for your future health. 3 beans, tiny seeds that hold big life. If you asked me which food is the most humble yet carries the quietest strength, I'd say beans. I remember one of my older patients, Richard, 74 years old. A simple man, living alone in a small wooden cabin by the woods. During a follow-up visit, I asked him what he'd been eating lately. He smiled gently and said, "Not much, doctor, just my pot of beans. I cook a big batch every week. It's kept me going for decades." I looked into his eyes that carried a kind of peace only simplicity can give. And suddenly, I was reminded of all the scientific research on beans. Beans, whether black beans, lentils, soybeans, kidney beans, are packed with fiber. And that fiber is like a gatekeeper for the digestive system. It helps clean the colon, reduces inflammation, eases pressure on the intestinal walls, and prevents the buildup of abnormal cells. There's a study I often share with patients. Nearly 2,000 people with a history of colon polyps, an early sign of cancer risk. And those who ate the most cooked beans had the lowest recurrence of polyps. Science calls that a protective effect. I call it a gift from nature. What fascinates me is this. These tiny, hard, dry beans, seemingly lifeless, when cooked, become steady nourishment. Just like us humans, sometimes the strongest things are also the simplest. Richard once told me, "Doctor, the beans don't just fill me up. They remind me I'm taking care of myself." And at his age, that was worth more than any fancy meal. A simple tip: don't rely on just one type. Rotate lentils, black beans, chickpeas, soybeans. Each has its own kind of protection. 2 to 3 servings a week are enough to support digestion and lower colorectal cancer risk. Sometimes the smallest seeds hold the greatest power for our health. Nor berries. Tiny drops of color that nourish the whole body. There's something magical about nature. It often hides its strongest medicine in the smallest things. Berries are the perfect example. I remember a visit with Eleanor, 71 years old. She had mild arthritis, low energy, and a family history of colon issues. Throughout our conversation, she kept turning a little box of fresh blueberries in her hands. I asked, "You really like blueberries, don't you?" She smiled. "Doctor, every time I eat a few, I feel like I'm adding a little hope." And I understood exactly what she meant. Berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries are rich in compounds called anthocyanins, the blue, purple, red pigments that help the body fight inflammation and protect against abnormal cell growth. Some studies are truly remarkable. Extracts from certain berries can slow the growth of colon cancer cells in lab studies. Freeze-dried black raspberries have been shown to reduce markers of mouth cancer progression. But what touched me most wasn't the science, it was the image of Eleanor lifting a tiny blueberry and saying, "It's funny, I never knew hope could be so small and sweet." Berries aren't just food. They're a reminder that the most beautiful, helpful things in life often come in simple, colorful, small packages. A daily habit that quietly shapes your future. A simple tip: 1 to 2 servings a day is ideal. Frozen berries are just as good as fresh, so don't worry about cost. Pair them with oatmeal or yogurt for even better digestive and immune benefits. A handful of berries each day may be one of the gentlest, most delicious ways to protect your long-term health. 5. Cinnamon. The warm spice that quietly takes care of you. Have you ever noticed how certain scents, even just a faint whiff, can make your heart feel a little lighter? For me, cinnamon is one of those scents. I still remember a cold winter morning at the hospital. Catherine, 70 years old, came in for her checkup with cold hands and a tired face. I poured her a cup of hot cinnamon tea. She breathed in gently, closed her eyes, and said, "Doctor, this scent reminds me that I'm still alive, still able to feel the warmth of life. Just a little cinnamon, yet it can soften a heavy day like that." But what makes cinnamon truly special isn't just the smell or the warm sweetness. Science today shows that cinnamon contains powerful compounds that reduce inflammation, help stabilize blood sugar, and most importantly for our topic, slow the growth of cancer cells. I once read an impressive study. Cinnamon essential oil helped suppress head and neck cancer cells and even shrank tumors in experimental models. Studies like that make me believe even more that sometimes the smallest things in nature carry the greatest strength. Just like in life, the warmest moments often come from the simplest things. Later, Catherine told me she makes herself a warm cinnamon drink every evening. She said, "It's not a miracle, doctor, but it helps me feel like I'm caring for my body in the gentlest way." And I believe that at our age, that gentleness is an important part of staying healthy. A simple tip: only 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of cinnamon a day is enough for your body to benefit. It pairs well with tea, coffee, oatmeal, or warm water with honey. Just remember, more isn't better. Too much cinnamon can stress the liver. A little cinnamon each day, not fancy, not expensive. But it may be the gentle warmth your body quietly needs. 6. Nuts. Tiny gems that build long-lasting strength. Once, I asked one of my longtime patients, Bernard, 75, "What helps you stay so healthy?" He smiled and tapped the pocket of his coat. "These, doctor, a few walnuts. I've kept them with me for decades." I watched him crack each nut slowly, almost like a ritual. And he added, "I didn't age in one day. I aged slowly. So I take care of myself slowly too, one little nut at a time." That stayed with me for a long time. Patience, that's what makes the real difference in our health. Nuts, walnuts, almonds, cashews, chia seeds, flax seeds, pistachios, sunflower seeds are tiny but packed with powerful nutrients. Antioxidants, plant-based omega-3 seconds, fiber, vitamin E, zinc, magnesium. They're the quiet protectors that help repair cells, reduce inflammation, and slow the growth of abnormal cells. One study I really love, published in 2015, showed that people who ate nuts regularly had a significantly lower risk of dying from cancer. Not because nuts are magic, but because they nourish the body in ways processed foods never can. When I asked Bernard why he stayed so loyal to nuts, he said, "They remind me that health doesn't come from rushing. It comes from small habits done over and over again." And I think that's a lesson many of us need at age 50, 60, or 70. A simple tip: one small handful a day, about 20-30 grams, is enough. Avoid heavily salted nuts. Too much sodium strains the heart and kidneys. Mix different kinds of nuts to get a wider range of benefits. These tiny nuts, sometimes they're the very things that keep your heart steadier, your joints smoother, and your body stronger against the quiet challenges inside you. 7. Olive oil. The gentle gold that protects your body. There's something I've learned after decades caring for older patients. Health is built from very small decisions, sometimes from a single drop of oil you cook with each day. I still remember meeting Rosetta, 69 years old, originally from Italy. She came in glowing bright eyes, rosy cheeks, full of energy. Curious, I asked her what her secret was. She laughed and said, "Doctor, we Italians believe in one thing. A spoonful of olive oil a day keeps your heart close to you a little longer." I laughed with her. But when I looked at her lab results, I had to admit she might be onto something. Olive oil, especially extra virgin, is rich in polyphenols, powerful antioxidants that reduce inflammation and protect DNA damage, the very damage that can lead to cancer. Science supports this strongly. Large analyses, including research from nearly 20 populations, show lower risks of breast cancer and digestive cancers among people who consume more olive oil. Another study involving 28 countries found that regions with higher olive oil consumption consistently had lower rates of colorectal cancer. Sometimes the simplest traditions carry the most wisdom. When I asked Rosetta if she ever considered switching to another cooking oil, she shrugged and said, "Why would I switch when the best one is already in my hands?" That sentence stayed with me for a long time. In life, we often chase what's new and complicated and forget the simple things that have been protecting us all along. A simple tip: choose extra virgin olive oil whenever you can. Use it for salads, drizzle it over cooked vegetables, or swap it for butter in some dishes. Avoid frying at very high temperatures. Heat can destroy the valuable polyphenols. Just one small drop of olive oil, sometimes that's the thread that ties you to better health, to peaceful mornings, and to the people you love. Turmeric, the little gold that holds big power. Some colors in nature feel like they were made to heal. To me, the golden yellow of turmeric is one of those colors, warm, bold, and somehow full of hope. I remember a patient named Henry, 70 years old. He had arthritis, sluggish digestion, and a lingering worry about colon polyps. During a checkup, I asked what changes he'd made to his diet. He smiled softly and said, "I just add a spoonful of turmeric powder to warm milk every night. I don't know if it actually works, but I feel lighter." I looked at him for a moment and said, "Henry, sometimes the body understands things long before science catches up. And science is catching up." Turmeric contains curcumin, a compound so powerful, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant that researchers have spent decades studying it. Some findings made me read them twice. One study showed that 4 grams of curcumin a day could reduce precancerous colon lesions by 40% in just 1 month. In lab studies, curcumin slowed the growth, even killed cancer cells in the lungs, breast, prostate, colon, and head and neck. But what I love most about turmeric isn't the numbers. It's its simplicity. A humble root, inexpensive, easy to use, yet capable of healing in a way many costly foods never could. I'll never forget what Henry said before he left that day. "I don't know if turmeric will help me live longer, but I know it helps me live easier." And at our age, living easier is sometimes the greatest gift of all. A simple tip: use 1/2 to 3 teaspoons of turmeric powder daily. Combine turmeric with black pepper to increase curcumin absorption by up to 0%. Mix it into warm milk, smoothies, or soups, simple and nourishing. A little turmeric each day. Warm, gentle, healing, just like the steady way Henry takes care of himself. Citrus fruits, the little drops of sunlight from nature. There are winter days in the hospital when everything feels gray. Hallways, faces, even the mood in the air. Patients are tired, the energy is low, and I always look for something bright to remind people that their bodies still carry hope. One day, Judith, 73 years old, walked into my office with a small bag of bright golden oranges. She placed it on my desk and said, "Doctor, here's a little sunshine. I've been feeling like I'm running low." I laughed, but when I held those oranges, I realized she was right. Citrus fruits always feel like sunlight, fresh, clean, full of life. But the real light they carry isn't in their color. It's in what's inside. Citrus fruits, oranges, grapefruits, lemons, limes are rich in powerful antioxidants, especially vitamin C and flavonoids. They help reduce inflammation, boost immunity, and protect DNA from the kind of damage that can lead to cancer. Science backs this clearly. People who regularly eat citrus fruits have lower risks of digestive and upper respiratory cancers. A review of 14 studies found that just 3 servings a week can reduce stomach cancer risk by 28%. Other evidence shows citrus may lower the risk of pancreatic cancer, one of the most dangerous cancers. But the moment I remember most is Judith's return visit months later. She walked in holding a cup of warm lemon water and told me, "Doctor, I don't know if these oranges will help me live longer, but every morning, standing in the sunlight, squeezing a lemon, I feel like I'm really living." At age 70, that feeling of truly living can mean more than perfect lab numbers. A simple tip: enjoy 2-4 servings of citrus fruits each week. Warm lemon water in the morning is wonderful for digestion and immunity. If you're on certain medications, especially heart meds, be careful with grapefruit as it can interact with some drugs. A single orange, a glass of warm lemon water, or even just one grapefruit segment, sometimes that's all it takes to give your body a little sunlight, the kind that makes you stronger day by day. Dessa tomatoes, the little red fruit that protects you as you age. One afternoon during lunch break at the hospital, I sat with my older colleague Dr. Spencer, now well into his 72nd. I noticed he always brought a small container filled with bright, juicy tomatoes. "Yoket, you really love tomatoes that much, don't you?" He smiled, slicing one in half, and said, "James, at my age, I choose the things that nourish me from the inside out. Tomatoes are one of them." Such a simple sentence, yet deeply true. Tomatoes aren't just food. They're the red heart of nature, packed with something remarkable: lycopene. It's the pigment that gives tomatoes their color. But inside the body, lycopene acts like a powerful shield, guarding cells from damage. What amazes me most is the overwhelming amount of research on tomatoes and cancer risk. For decades, scientists across the world have studied different populations, and the results are consistently the same. People who eat more tomatoes have significantly lower risk of prostate cancer. One study following more than 47,000 men found that those with the highest lycopene intake had a dramatically reduced risk of prostate cancer. Another review of 17 studies found similar results. It's no wonder Dr. Spencer, with all his life experience, still chooses tomatoes for lunch every single day. But what makes tomatoes even more special is this: they're even healthier when cooked. Heat releases more lycopene and makes it easier for your body to absorb. So tomato sauces, soups, stews, or even toasted bread with olive oil and ripe tomatoes are all wonderful options. I remember Dr. Spencer once said, "Tomatoes don't make me younger, but they help me grow older with more peace." And I think that's what all of us want at 50, 60, or 70. Not to resist time, but to live gently within it. A simple tip: enjoy tomatoes daily in any form, raw, cooked, sauced, or in soups. Pair them with olive oil to boost lycopene absorption. Don't discard the seeds or the skin, they hold the most nutrients. A small red tomato? Yet it might be one of the things that keeps your heart stronger and your future calmer. Alvin. Garlic. The little white cloves with quiet power. There are foods that look so simple, so ordinary, you'd never imagine how much strength they carry inside. Garlic, just a few small white cloves, is one of nature's most powerful silent protectors. I remember a patient named Walter, 76. He had been a cook in the military, so there wasn't a spice he didn't know. Every time he came in for a checkup, I could smell garlic faintly on him, a scent any longtime cook would recognize instantly. One day I asked, "Walter, why do you eat so much garlic?" He chuckled, rubbing a clove between his fingers. "Doctor, I watched garlic keep an entire platoon healthy during the hardest days. I trust it, and my body trusts it too." That stayed with me. Because sometimes the body trusts natural things long before we understand why. Garlic contains a powerful compound called allicin. When you crush, chop, or smash garlic, allicin is activated, and that's the very compound that fights inflammation, fights oxidation, and destroys abnormal cells. Science backs this up clearly. People who eat garlic regularly have lower risks of stomach cancer. A study of over 500,000 people found garlic and other allium vegetables significantly reduce cancer risk. Garlic has been linked to lower risks of prostate cancer and colorectal tumors. And in the lab, allicin can slow or even kill certain cancer cells outright. But what I love most about garlic isn't the research. It's the image of people like Walter, older, wise, caring for themselves in simple yet meaningful ways. During his final checkup, he told me, "I don't eat garlic because I'm afraid of getting sick. I eat it to remind myself that health doesn't always come from big things." And the 40. And at our age, living slowly, steadily, patiently, that might be the best protection of all. A simple tip: one fresh garlic clove a day is enough. Crush it and let it sit for 10 minutes before cooking to activate the allicin. Don't cook garlic at extremely high heat. It destroys the beneficial compounds. A tiny clove of garlic, yet it might be what helps you stay strong through the most important years of your life. 12. Fatty fish. A gift from the sea that nourishes you from within. There's one afternoon I remember vividly. My patient, Harold, 72 years old, retired after decades as a fisherman in Alaska, walked into my office carrying a small package of smoked salmon. He set it on the table, looked at me with quiet pride, and said, "Doctor, this is what kept me alive through countless snowstorms. The sea made me strong, and now I want to share a little of that strength." I looked at his weathered hands and then at the salmon, and I understood. For someone who's lived his whole life by the ocean, food isn't just nutrition. It's memory, gratitude, and a piece of their soul. Fatty fish, especially salmon, mackerel, sardines, and anchovies, contain two nutrients older adults desperately need: vitamin D and omega-3 seconds. Omega-3 seconds are like lubrication for the body. They reduce inflammation, protect blood vessels, support the brain, and most importantly, help slow the growth of abnormal cells. Research has shown something remarkable. People who eat fatty fish regularly have lower risks of colorectal and digestive cancers. It's no coincidence that coastal communities from Japan to Northern Europe tend to live longer and have far lower cancer rates. But what I love most about fatty fish isn't the data, it's the peace it brings to older adults. During Harold's final checkup, he said, "You know, doctor, when I eat fish, I remember all the storms I survived, and it makes me believe my body is still strong enough to weather the ones ahead." At 60, 70 years old, we don't just need nutrients. We need reminders that our bodies still have strength, still have chances, and still have reasons to live slowly and live well. A simple tip: try to eat fatty fish twice a week. If the smell bothers you, try seared salmon, grilled mackerel, or low-sodium canned tuna. Pair fish with leafy greens and olive oil for extra anti-inflammatory benefits. A single piece of fatty fish doesn't just feed your body. It feeds your belief that health is still on your side, as long as you walk with it, one day at a time. You know, after all these years in medicine, I've learned something important. Good health doesn't come from big changes. It comes from small choices, repeated every day. A bowl of broccoli, a clove of garlic, a handful of nuts, a warm glass of lemon water, tiny things, maybe, but together they help shape the future of your health. If you learned something helpful today, consider it a small gift to yourself. And if you'd like more gentle, practical, inspiring lessons like this, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, not to follow me, but to walk alongside your own health day by day, meal by meal, breath by breath. I'll see you in the next video, wishing you strength, peace, and a life lived slowly, kindly, and fully.